Hey everyone, it's Wendy Hutchinson with The Path of Me. I am so excited. I say that every time, but I'm so excited to have Miss Sara Kujawa with me, who is,
Hi
hey
there.
Sara, who is a Reiki master, a teacher, a spiritual teacher, a mentor, a medium, and really her purpose is to help guide people through grief. That's kind of her core focus, is helping people navigate grief. So welcome, Sara. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me again, Wendy.
I know. I love having you on my show because, first of all, we get along so well and we never run out of anything to talk about. So we're just kind of on the same wavelength, I think, a lot of the time.
Yeah, here we are in the middle of April 2020, right in the middle of everything.
Yeah, and I think
all the growing pains.
What I wanted to do, so I've been having a lot of different people on just to give me their perspective around all of these shifts that are happening with this virus thing, because people tend to take experiences that are presenting in their lives at face value, but I feel like there's such a bigger story behind what's happening for the population. So what's your take on it?
Gosh, so there's so much. There's many layers to it. So from the grief standpoint, you can look at it and say everyone's grieving. Those who are in the midst of this, no matter where they are, if they're one of the essential workers or if they're at home or whatever's going on, we're all suffering some kind of grief, whether it's we're not allowed to go somewhere in our freedoms, whether we're missing out on something, or we have had a loved one who's sick and we're missing the traditional grieving process. So there's something there, or our job.
Definitely a loss, right?
Lots
Everyone's
of insecurities coming up.
Yeah.
Scarcity.
Yeah.
So that's all coming up to the forefront. It's almost like a global catalyst to help us all heal all our insecurities and lack of self-love too. Because until we can truly love ourselves, we can't radiate and be as compassionate to others. On the surface, we can.
Core of everything.
Yeah, the core of everything is the compassion. Yeah, love and compassion, in the same box. So I see this as something that, as a collective, we all ask for. It's just been kind of bubbling under the surface for a long time. I mean, it could be from government infrastructures changing. It could be from, robbing from Peter to give to Paul. It could be all the way from changing how we see our medical professionals, to our teachers, to the essential workers, the restaurants, all these people kind of having to step into their power and step up and be a helper. And then to help each other, through social media. Because if we didn't have the internet and electricity, it'd be a whole different ballgame. We'd be going back to the last plague or whatever.
We would definitely we would probably have withdrawals. I mean, the internet is such an integral part of our lives now, and that's our main means of connectivity.
Yeah.
This time. So I'm grateful for it.
And we're in the air conditioning. Here we are in South Texas, where it's summer. So we are very, very fortunate that we are in the midst of summer and being able to get out in nature, as opposed to some people who are still stuck in the doom and gloom of winter, right? So that is a whole different.
That would impact your psyche for sure.
It does normally, just let alone with all this, right? Yeah. So whatever everyone's going through is to push you to see the broader and broader and broader perspective, how this is happening for you, not to you.
Tell me a little bit more about that.
So for me, grief of the sudden death of my son 6 years ago, it was the catalyst to get me to that point, to see all the inner workings. And these are just the glimpses that we see. So we know that there's a huge it's like the iceberg effect, right? Mm-hmm. So there's so much that we can't see beyond. But what we can do is to navigate and go within and listen to our body, listen to our emotions, get to know our inner self, and that kind of radiates outward so we can see the broader view of everything and why this is happening and why this person might be really irritating you, et cetera, et cetera. So it can all, it's just a ripple effect, a family member that you're stuck in the home with. And it helps you because really for most of us, I'm going to speak for you and I or most Americans, until we know what we don't want, we can't really focus on what we do want. It's kind of like, I got to have that, what I don't like. I got to have that experience. It's like, I got to touch the hot stove. Oh, okay. I know that means I won't do that again. And it doesn't mean, accidents, but there's really not an accident, but it doesn't mean that things don't happen in according to the divine timing, because everything isn't divine timing. Everything's in accordance to what it is for soul growth and evolution.
Right.
And this has been so impactful to see how we are each connected, whether it's the face masks and the germs, whether it's reaching out and helping someone else who doesn't have, access to certain needs, everyday needs, whether it's the healthcare workers or someone who needs food, whether it's going to get to the point where we can do the antibodies test so we can help someone else we don't know and help them. So it's always see how we're all connected. And if you can step back, I had mentioned this yesterday, we're going to step back, and it's probably going to be something, in another 3 to 5 years, we're going to have like an HBO series about this to see how it's really helped us propel forward. But if you're in it, it's very, very difficult to see it any other way, right? Because you're in the midst of it.
It's like grief. When you're in the heart of it, you're so blinded by the emotion that you can't see where it's taking you. You can't see a silver lining. All you know is you're feeling so uncomfortable and you're feeling pain on some level or uncertainty. And I know this virus it's not like every person is losing a loved one and at that level of distress or grief. But there's an element and a common thread here where there's this uncertainty and this emotional discomfort and maybe fear of what's coming. And the fear program is the one thing that controls you. You are not empowered if you're in a place of fear. So I'm curious.
The biggest dial we have on our dashboard.
Yeah, I'm curious how you help people navigate and connect to their emotions when you're helping people through grief, because it's for people who aren't used to feeling, how do you
used to feeling? That's scary because many of us were raised not to feel, or to tuck everything under the rug, or to be shameful, or but that's all our perception of how we interpret it anyway, right? Because we can go back into something that we were uneasy with as a child, but when we go back into those memories, we tend to go back into, like we were talking before we started, I go into the point where I wasn't picked up from kindergarten, but I'm going back in as a 6-year-old, not as a 59-year-old. So if I try to look at it from a 59-year-old view, or from my parents' view, that it might only been 10 minutes, but 10 minutes felt like 2 hours to me, right?
Right.
So it depends on if it's an individual session, whatever comes to the surface. So it's kind of, I like to pull out, and whatever comes to the surface, that's what we work on. I mean, I can go in there and pick at it, but if it's not up to the surface yet, then that means they're just probably not ready. It's just bubbling still, trying to process it, or they haven't connected the energy to it.
Yeah. So do you just like hold space for people to kind of get there on their own, or is there like a tool that people can use to kind of feel what they're feeling without having a breakdown?
There's many, many, many tools, and it's kind of like experimenting and stepping out of your own way of doing it, because we're always doing the same thing over, expecting a different result. Right. And there's nothing, of course, wrong with pharmaceuticals at all. Some people need an antidepressant or something for anxiety, something to kind of take the edge off, but it's still going to be there until they can feel whole. So it's really working on their wholeness. So a lot of it is a loved one has decided to exit. They finished their journey, but they're continuing their journey because they did it to help their loved one progress in their evolution. But it's trying to get into that point, and then it's kind of like the top of the roller coaster, and you go, oh, I'm getting the fuller picture now. You know, so say if they died in a tragic accident, how can you help propel and make changes in the world, whether it's just you, it could be anything from taking flowers to a nursing home, whatever it is to propel you forward to help the world and help the world become better instead of bitter. So, but then the better perspective, there are no such things as accidents. It's just how we see that in our 3D perspective.
It's all by perfect
design.
And that's really difficult for people to grasp. That there's a cosmic plan and there's an order to the way things happen, and it's all triggering growth and expansion for all the players involved.
Yes.
So maybe this situation that people find themselves in where they're home and they've got a lot of family and they're not getting a break and it's stressful. These triggers are happening all by design. What is it showing you about your relationship? What is it showing you about how you're parenting? What's it showing you about how you handle stress? What's it showing you about yourself ultimately? And what choices are you going to make to show up in a different way if you're not showing up as your best self, right?
Right. And identifying what your best self is, because most of us are running just on automatic pilot. And we're all the way up until this. This is what I do. This is when I get up. It's almost like we're robots. You know, you don't remember locking the door. Everything is you just do it. And now we're being forced to slow down. It feels like to me we've gone back 20 years and I like it.
Yeah, the pace is slower. I was talking to my husband about that, how it's quiet. We don't have traffic. We live a mile out of the city of Houston in Midtown, and there is so much traffic and so much speeding and homeless and chaos and noise. And, you know, my home is a sanctuary, but it's just right out my front door, you know. So with everything closing, it has just created this beautiful peace and this slower pace. And I'm just enjoying it so much. And we've been wondering what's going to happen when it all opens up again. Will people have shifted a little bit and changed behaviors, or will it be back to the same exact? I'm hoping people shift and change and are doing some inner work and inner reflection and really learning something about themselves during this time.
And liking what some of their experiences. They may say, you know what, I prefer working at home a few days a week.
Yeah.
Because now I'm not stuck in traffic and that caused more stress. Or now I don't have to have the kids longer in daycare. All these little things that may come up. So
I think
it's
values,
opportunities.
like our whole value system, our values are shifting in a really powerful way, even if it's not spoken or talked about. There's an internal shift happening where we realize, like we were talking about, Sara, the medical community, they're the real heroes, the teachers, the daycare providers, the restaurant workers, the people who are actually serving us at this critical time. Maybe we don't need to be watching these reality TV shows, and maybe they're not really adding value to this world.
The reality show is shifted. You're right.
You know, the people who are behind the scenes that have been taken for granted all this time are really, I can't believe you have a yellow Sara mug. That is so.
I know, my husband got it for me. That's what I asked Santa for, and I didn't get it. And then he was at some boat or camping show or something a few months ago, and he goes, there was a person there that was making the thermal mugs, and they had a yellow one. So he had Sara put on it.
Well, yellow
with the butterfly.
Oh my God, yellow is how Sara gets these little winks from her son who's transitioned, is when she sees yellow or there's
yellow.
So to have a yellow mug that's cool.
Yeah, all the way through yellow. And you know what? And growing up, yellow was one of my least favorite colors. So see how that shifted in me, going, I still appreciate yellow now. Something that simple.
How did you come to that place of knowing this radical experience, this tragedy in your life was actually serving you in some way, or that there was a bigger picture and a bigger plan. I see kind of this as a metaphor for what's happening now for the world, that there's this breakdown, then reset, and then this, you literally found your calling in life as a result of this very difficult situation. Like, what was that tipping point for you? And
there were several tipping points, because you can tip and then you can wobble back, and then you can tip and you can wobble back, as you know. That's the part of grief, right? Or it's like people now, they're fine for a few days and then they may go back down, fine for a few days. I think some of the first messages I went to, of course, in the first few weeks, it was just like I didn't even know my name, right? Even though I was getting signs and messages already, and hints and little things, small things and big things, but that's not what my envision was, that, and the child is supposed to outlive the parent.
Yeah.
So I wasn't ready to see anything out there. I was still needing to work through my emotions and purge. But yet I would get those little glimpses, but I didn't know what to do with it. I had no idea what to do with it, because even when he was born, I knew he was going to have a short life. I just didn't know what to do with that information. So it became fear and worry. Like I could control it, and I would have to be really, pay more attention to everything he did. And he was a wild and crazy kid. So I took it on as my responsibility, which that was the big lesson for me, to understand we each have our own soul's journey, and we are here to push and pull and influence, but it's still up to the person, that soul, to choose their exit point. And that was a huge one, to get to that tipping point, not to know, to truly feel that in my body.
Accept it.
You wave or accept it and go,
know it.
Yeah, that feels right. That feels right.
A lot of
that
people,
was not a belief I was raised
A lot
with.
of people have a hard time believing that we choose our exit point.
Yeah.
They can't believe that someone would choose an exit point.
I remember even
a hard time with that.
Getting to the point of saying, and someone said to me, well, you know that this is not it. And I said, what do you mean it's not it? Because I was raised Catholic. You bury them in the ground and you mourn for them, even though Jesus had all his teachings about it,
The reincarnation part?
Meaning there is a higher self. There is more to us. I was not even, I thought, oh, when we're done, we're just cut off. And we're into the soup. We're into God's soup.
You're floating somewhere.
I'm just floating somewhere. So then when I thought, oh my God, Adam still can be Adam. It was not until I could communicate, or I had a few sessions early on, like 6 weeks, that was like, he still remembers. I could not even, I wasn't even thinking of all these memories. Everything is kind of there in that Akashic record. Everything is there. I didn't know that. I wasn't raised that way to believe that. I didn't even know how to question it, because it wasn't in my reality yet.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, I believed in signs and messages, because both my parents had passed long ago. I believed in all that, but I thought, okay, they do that to let you know you're okay, and then they're off to the cloud or something.
Look how far you've come, and that was 2014. Like, that was 6 years ago. Your whole life is totally changed.
Yeah, and anyone else who watches this, when you have someone so, especially a child, because that's your heart, right? And I'm not discounting, other relatives, but it's like, and that was my catalyst. This was something I agreed on a soul level, and I felt it. I felt that shift going, oh my God.
That's the hardest.
I think I've shared this with you in one of the talks, but the first sign is we got the news passed on Thursday night, but we didn't get the knock on the door till a Friday morning, because there was a work investigation, and the owner of his company had flown in from Denver to do work in Houston, and then he happened to be in Houston that night, and he wanted to come to our door to tell us personally versus getting a phone call. And Amy happened to be home from college. It was the three of us in this home at the exact same time. My husband hadn't left for work yet. See the divine timing of that we were all together so we could mourn and be together and make the flight to Colorado where the accident happened. But when we got the knock on the door, and I got so many stories. I came in, and of course, I'm just like screaming. I'm just like, you probably every neighbor within a mile radius could hear me sobbing. And my daughter comes running down the stairs, and I tell her the news. I'm standing and I'm looking because I'm still in shell shock. Like, who is this man at my door? What, it wasn't making sense. And I had Teresa Caputo's first book on my coffee table. I had just finished reading it the night before. Okay. And when my husband shut the door, came back in, he kicked the coffee table because that was his way of venting, was to go punch everything and, kicks the coffee table. And the only thing that fell off was Teresa's book. It flipped over and flipped back over upright facing my feet. I looked down, and I don't remember the title of it now. I have it over here in the bookcase. Like, you can't make this stuff up or something like that. I looked at it, picked it up, looked at it. I looked at Amy, my daughter, and I looked at it and I slung it across the room because I knew that life was going to be my life now.
Oh my God.
And that moment, within like 10, 15 minutes after getting the news, I didn't want that news. I didn't want that, but that's how quick those hits came in. But I was like pushing it away because I knew I needed to grieve. I thought it was going to be like something you go through, like it's going to be like, oh, okay, I got to work on my master's now, but it doesn't work that way.
Probably a lot messier and a lot of ups and downs and a lot of uncertainty, and you almost don't know. Like, probably you think you're over something, and then it hits you in some random store.
That's that layer.
Random
it's that spiral. Yeah. And so that every time, and so what I'm saying, I guess I'm sharing that part, is because so many people now that are in home or worrying or fearing the death of their loved one or fearing their own mortality, all that stuff's coming to the surface so you can extend your beliefs and let go of those fears. Okay.
Maybe choose faith instead of fear.
Faith.
Faith
and trust. Go back to,
people who are so, they talk about faith, they talk about God, they talk about whatever they're talking about, whatever they're into, and then when it comes to it, right to fear.
Right. We got to walk the walk. Yeah. Walk the walk.
Yeah.
And you really don't know, that old saying, you don't know until you've walked in someone else's shoes. And so many of people are walking in those shoes right now.
Yeah. For sure.
So it's really focusing on getting the broader perspective. If you have a question, that was another part of mine, is to start asking and feeling in my body. How does it feel? How does it feel? Does that feel scary? If it feels scary, that means there's more to learn about it. Yeah,
for sure. I think connecting to our heart and our feelings is so pivotal right now, because fear starts in the mind and it festers.
It can turn physical.
It drives everything, right? It drives your behavior. It drives your thought patterns. It drives your emotions. It drives your response, right?
It drives the ratings up on TV.
It does. Those news stations that people
they just make more money. That's right.
It's all a choice, right?
All a
you
choice.
Get to choose. Like, is this really serving me?
You know the old saying of what would Jesus do? I'm going to leave Jesus. I mean, I love Jesus, and you know that. I love to talk to Jesus, but we'll leave the Jesus out. What would your higher self do? Really focus and just slow down. You're going to get the insight when you slow down in your thoughts, and that's why everyone's being forced. Now, some are not. Some are out working and busting their buns, so they're in a different place in their journey. But and that's all divine too. Because some of those are going to be suffering now from PTSD and other things that are
for sure. Yeah. What do you think people are getting out of this slowdown, like forced slowdown? What do you think it's really about?
Getting to know themselves and going in and going, this is what I like, this is what I don't like. Whether it's something you don't like about yourself that's reflecting outward. It could be something that, oh, you know what? I never did like that sofa to begin with, that my ex talked me into. It could be something as simple as that, right? Decluttering your own house.
So many people who are decluttering their entire closet, their homes. There's kind of like this collective purge happening. I think not just emotional stuff, but I think physical stuff, which holds energy too. So even if people aren't maybe doing deep emotional clearing or reflection, they are clearing energy out of their homes by like, okay, well, I've got all this time. I think I'll go through my closet or the
junk drawer
or whatever.
The junk drawer. Yeah, because and that was even, I did that during grief too, because it was like I wanted to hold on to everything that had a memory attached to Adam.
Well, that's everything. How did you?
That was a hard one because we were in the process of updating our house. This was before Harvey, way before Harvey. Updating. And I even remember because we were getting our house painted like in a couple months. And I had these all terrible feelings in my body because I was like, I don't want the house to change because these are my memories of raising Adam in this home. I didn't want to go from a white house to a tan house. That was hard. So I just had to try to connect with him and feel, how does this feel? Give me some ideas. And then it got to the point where making changes inside, I'd ask for his opinion, or I'd bring in my mom's spirit and ask her for opinion. She loved to decorate, so that was her thing. And then it was like, oh, okay, I got a new idea. You should do this or try this. Oh, okay. And it felt like they were there and I was having conversation with them about this because I couldn't when you're in grief, it's very hard to make a simple decision. Like, what color should I paint this?
What should I?
It was very difficult.
Let alone
or did I have
color.
lunch? That's right.
Yeah.
And so that was a way, more or less, I couldn't say that, it was a nugget to lure me to say, instead of not painting it, I wanted to paint, say, the table, like the one I'm at now. I didn't know what shade to go with. And I couldn't, because I was so deep in, I couldn't make a decision. I thought, oh, I'll just ask spirit for guidance. And I'd see images, or they'd say, remember this or that. And I go, oh yeah, that kind of, sort of that shade. So it helped me to strengthen that communication to prove to me on an everyday basis, they weren't lost. They weren't in the soup forever.
That was a huge paradigm shift for you.
That was huge. Being raised Catholic, that was huge.
Did you have any feelings of like, I'm going to go to hell if I attach to these new beliefs because I know these are true for me?
Yeah.
Like
right?
then you have that whole guilt piece because Catholics and guilt, man, we go together.
Ooh, I had family members try to put that on me right away.
That's tough.
It wasn't me because I was already dabbling in a couple years before he passed with Sylvia Brown and James Van Praagh. All those, even though it was out there, it was not, I thought that was something, there was only like, God only granted 12 in America that could do this or something ridiculous, right? Knowing everyone can. And I was already dabbling in it, and I went to the Teresa Caputo's live gallery just weeks before Adam passed. And Adam thought it was a bunch of, I remember even telling him about it. So that was to show me that this is real and not to jump in the fear boat because they already saw my family was going to jump and say, you know what, you're doing that Satan's work or whatever, a bunch of malarkey.
I'm sure you got a lot of that as you started to come out and really own, because I think in the beginning what happens is as we're expanding consciousness, we really keep it to ourselves because we just don't want to deal with the judgment or the pushback.
That's a huge one, isn't it?
What's really tough is we all come in here with a specific purpose. And a lot of us have a lane or a purpose that doesn't align with what our families believe or what our families think is credible or of importance or is going to create success as defined by them. So there's a lot of judgment, it's challenging, right? Because to step into
it's very challenging.
You have to really own your truth. You have to stand so fully in your knowing and your power and your alignment with the contract and the mission that you agreed to play here at this time. You have to be so strong to lock into your lane and do it anyway.
That was huge for me. You probably remember in the beginning, it was like, I have a message, and it was like, I don't even want to say it. Because you know what they, oh no.
Well, you know what I found too is people can only hear what their vibration allows them to hear.
What they're matched to.
Whatever they are. They can only filter and receive information in that bandwidth.
Yeah, the radio station.
As we're shifting and as we're changing and expanding and growing, we get really excited and we want to share this knowledge, right? You're so excited, like, oh my gosh, this happened, and then and people aren't ready for it. And what I feel is happening right now on the planet is there is some shit getting shaken and stirred right now. There is stuff happening in our everyday reality, but also energetically in our physical energetic fields. Things are being shaken and stirred emotionally, internally. There's a lot of change that is going to come. And I believe it's going to be positive.
Yeah, I always look for the positive.
Yeah, but how we react and respond to it is really going to drive our experience.
Right. If you focus on the negative part of just, if you're glass half empty or glass half full, this is where people are going to shift right now and go, if I just focus on my reality comes more joyful and acceptable versus, what's going on somewhere else, right? I mean, not that you
can't even control, right?
Control. If you're a control freak, a lot of people are freaking out right now. That's right.
Yes, for sure. And there's nothing they can do about it because they can't control the situation.
They can't control that.
Right? So
they just feed it. It's like you keep feeding it. You keep feeding it. So whatever you're thinking about and focusing on gets bigger, right? But a lot of people don't pay attention to what their inner thoughts, their self-talk is going on. It's kind of like you're on the freeway and you see there's an accident. You can't help but not look, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. You got to kind of like stick your nose in for a second,
Well, I think there's also this inner knowing that once you can't unsee what you see. Mm-hmm. You can't unknow what you know. So when you start to kind of peel the scabs off and feel the feels, and it can be really, really rough. And I want to let people know that there are people out there like Sara and myself that can help you navigate these things. You don't have to do this alone. I did it alone because I didn't know any better. I was so green to this whole experience.
Right, there wasn't a manual.
Manual, right? There was no guidebook, and it was tough. But
I used to even have, I don't want to say arguments because I'm not that type of person, but here I am communicating with, say, Archangel Michael. I'm arguing with him about something. I'm literally arguing because that was my framework going, well, no, I can't work,
That's a very human thing to do.
It's so dumb now I look back at it, but when I was in it was like, I am blessed enough to hear him, but I'm arguing with him because I wasn't seeing the bigger. I couldn't because that's where I was.
Well, that's what I'm talking about, right? We are limited in what we're willing to assimilate.
Yes.
And take in because of our limiting beliefs.
Yes.
So I just want to encourage people to open your heart a little more. There's a lot out there that you're not aware of, and you don't know what you don't know. We don't know.
You can't know what you don't know. That's right.
We don't know what we don't know about this virus. We don't know what we don't know about the role President Trump is playing right now. We don't know what we don't know about anything until later when the facts really come out.
Till the HBO series comes out.
So let's reserve judgment. Let's just take everything in, filter it, make a best retain what resonates and let go what doesn't. And let's stop fighting with each other. There's some nasty Facebook stuff going on where people are like fighting each other, longtime friends fighting each other because they have different opinions politically or about the situation or the virus, or somebody's family member sick and someone else is saying, turns it into a political debate. I mean, it's just, I was like, wow, I really don't want to be a part of this.
I have unfollowed several friends because they got to that arena and they weren't like that before. But it's bringing up their stuff.
Yes.
And I'm not saying maybe they're supposed to be to do it to stir the pot for their friends, so they'll think differently. I don't know, but I don't want to be a part of it. So I just unfollow them. Just unfollow. Keep them friends. Just unfollow it and go, give them a few more months.
Yeah. Everybody's processing stuff in their own way, but we don't need to get stuck and sucked into people's drama. It's a choice,
you
right?
Send them love. Like, you can get really irritated. Like, here's a great example. So one of my pet peeves now that Adam's passed, and I had to work through all this, is when I'm out and about and I hear a parent yelling or belittling their child in some way. That really pushes my buttons.
The worst.
And usually I try to figure out a way to not be involved, but to kind of change the energy. Sometimes I will just wink at the child, or, I'll send love, whatever, and just kind of breathe in and breathe out for them, like a surrogate, especially if you're in line or something. And so this happened at our park because all the county parks are closed. The subdivision parks are open, not the playgrounds, but all the trails and everything.
Right.
And there was this young parent, she was probably in her mid-30s, with maybe a preteen. She was screaming and cussing and tearing her open in front of everyone at the park. I could hear her like 200 feet away.
Oh no.
And all of a sudden I could just feel my heart. I just, that I start crying. I didn't even know what was going on. I figured she was probably over in the corner smoking a cigarette. Who knows, whatever.
Yeah,
and I don't care.
Who cares?
I just wanted to, and I kept hearing, no, don't get involved. Witness it and send love, but I felt so bad because it was like, this is not just normal. This doesn't happen around here.
People are really being pushed to their limits and really forced, like we were saying, to face stuff.
Face stuff.
Face ourselves, right?
Right. And it was like, oh my gosh. So it was, so I just tried to send love to the child. I didn't even want to look at the mom when I walked by her. It's like, I don't know. But I knew that she was being pushed. I don't know her circumstances, so I'm going to assume something horrible has happened.
I mean, or this could be like 5 years of this kid working her last nerve, and now they're together 24/7 at home.
Yeah,
I would be screaming too.
Right?
Like, not that bad.
It could have been her mom's cigarette she stole too, for all I know. So I'm going to take the higher road. But it was like, because normally I would never get involved, but I felt like this mommy, like I wanted to hug her. You know what I mean? Because for someone, she can't take those words back. The damage was done, and it was
done. And I think you and I both,
it was very, very vulgar. Yeah.
We can relate to losing our kids because our kids pushed us.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Our sons pushed us hard. So that's one thing Sarah and I share.
Yes, and that came up. That came up this morning, actually, when I was thinking about it. And then that came up when with that woman thinking, oh my gosh, I cannot take any of those words back, anything with Adam. And it was nothing to the degree of what this woman did.
Right.
But it was like, I know through my in-life review that I kind of did with, myself and my team in my grieving process in that first year, was all that stuff that I felt guilty about came to the surface so I could see it differently. And Adam would reassure me, Mom, you were the best mom, And
I think what helped me is to understand that everything happens for a reason. And it's to trigger growth for our family members. And whatever it is, whether it's a loving encounter or a challenging encounter or a volatile, exchange, it's triggering growth for both people or all the family, whatever it is. And it's by design, and it's right on time, and not to attach guilt and, don't be hard on yourself, because we are all doing the best we can. Some days that's better than others,
Those are great words, because now we can say that with everyone around us. You know what? We are not in their shoes. They are doing the best they can.
Yeah.
Like this mom that was screaming. Of course, my head's saying she was not doing the best she can. But I know, I don't know her circumstances.
But in her circumstances, for her at that moment, she had reached her limit and she was done. Yeah, and I think a lot of people can relate to that under the circumstances right now. There's if you have not done a lot of your inner work, or you're surrounded by people who are deeply asleep and patterns that are unhealthy are coming to the surface and being triggered and churned up, and we don't have the distractions now to leave the house and just go shopping or go out to a movie with a friend or just escape our lives, we have to look at it. We're being forced.
And we're going to keep getting forced to look at it.
Yeah. And
keep getting forced.
So get curious what that's about. Whatever's being triggered for you right now. What's that about? And how can you respond maybe differently to the circumstance? Because when you shift the energy that you bring to it, you completely can alter the outcome.
Right. And knowing to do that, though, you have to slow down your thoughts and follow in your heart. Because if we go into that, like, I don't like myself, I'm not good enough and all that, it's going to be very difficult to pull back out of that.
We're so good at attaching to that shame story, that worthiness story that, God, there I go again, being a terrible, we're so good at knocking ourselves down. It's almost a default and we don't even recognize it. But pay attention to how you're treating yourself. It's so important right now that we're nourishing ourselves, getting rest, doing everything we can to show up for our families in a healthy way. Eating the right foods sometimes.
Doing the best, because food is a vibration.
Yeah.
Food is about, not that I love to bake. That's always been my thing. I saw that on an episode of Grey's Anatomy, like when it first came out, 15 years ago, where one of the doctors who was grieving, loss of her, I think it was her fiance, and they showed her kitchen was full of like 50 pies, like she had baked. And I go, oh my God, that is so me.
Did you go into a baking?
I didn't do the 50 pies in 24 hours, but I love to bake. I always have. I picked that up from watching my mom bake, but it's a comfort thing. Like the smells, the taking all these ingredients and making something pretty, all that. My issue I'm still working through is wanting to eat it or eat large amounts of it. That's my issue.
I've been eating. Do you notice I'm a little fatter? I've gained some weight since our last video encounter. I still get out and exercise, but I don't know why. I keep wandering over to the fridge. Boredom.
Yeah, it's a different schedule.
Yeah.
And we are not here in our area where we have access to food 24/7. We have never been denied food, on this past few weeks. Toilet paper was a little iffy for a little bit, but other than that,
I think it's getting better. My jeans still fit, so I refuse to get on the scale. That's never happening. Ever.
Right. I don't want to get on the scale either.
Why?
Just because.
Why crush my soul?
You know what the difference is? I am not doing intense sweating workouts. I'm not getting my cardiovascular.
For people who don't know Sara, she owned a gym and she was a personal trainer. So she is very conscious and aware of her
all
body,
that.
Working
but
out.
It really shifted when Adam passed too. It slowed me down because I held onto that grief in my body for a long time, and it caused a lot of issues in my body. So that's why I like to help other people to say, where's this pain showing up? Why are you having physical pain? Where did this emotion come? Where's this emotional trail coming from? And then it's still up to you to break these habits and patterns.
Getting curious is the biggest thing, right?
Being curious.
Get curious about why that one sock on the floor just pissed you off so bad. Get curious about the sock.
Right?
Curious why loading a dishwasher a certain way is irritating the shit out of you. Like, what's that really about?
What is it really about?
There's something deeper going on there.
And just take it one more level. I find myself knowing, like, say if my husband, things that irritate him, I try to make sure that I don't do that. Really, and I shouldn't care, but I try not to. Like if he doesn't like the dishwasher set a certain way or whatever, I try to say, oh my God, I know he's gonna come home and say something about it or whatever. So I find myself trying to, like, I don't know, do extra to make sure he doesn't.
Wow, that's
and
really,
I shouldn't do that, but
right.
I think that is just part of being wife, mom. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't do that.
Woohoo!
I'm like, and you're lucky you're getting dinner, and then I wash the damn dishes, and I'm like, here's shit about it, okay? My poor husband, he's like, okay, thank you. Whatever.
Or he'll say, oh, did you work today? Well, I only had, 2 sessions or whatever. Oh, so what do we have for dinner? See how it made me feel guilty then? That kind of thing. Yeah. I've got to work through that. And I know a lot of others can relate right now too, especially if they have some person.
I'd be like, whatever you're picking up, babe, that's what you're having. Get out there and order something.
Because I'm happy with a bowl of cereal for dinner.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, I'd rather have a pretty salad, but if I don't have time or just don't feel like, I'm happy with a bowl of cereal.
Exactly.
It does not bother me one bit.
I don't know. I think our priorities are shifting, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
Priorities are shifting. Like, what is really important to me right now is showing up for my family. That's my number priority.
Well, you're holding light and space in your family. You always have, but even more so now.
Yes, not only showing up for my family here, but for the world. Mm-hmm. Sometimes our vibration and the energy that we're shining and radiating out in whatever way we're doing it, whether it's baking pies or making people laugh or holding ourselves, holding our vibration at the highest place and sharing it and radiating it out. Our energy, it travels across space and time. It's multidimensional. It's not limited to linear time.
Right.
It's not limited to time. So who we are, we're like beacons, every one of us. Our vibration is going out, and we can be contributing light to the world, or we can, be contributing darkness, depending on where we are vibrationally, right? So I'm always trying to reach for the light. I'm always trying to be present for my friends and community, not in a martyr type way where I'm just like doing too much and giving away the farm, but sometimes just being our highest and best self, that's enough.
Don't you think that's what we're all being asked to do?
Yeah.
But everyone's journey's different. Some people have had a rough road growing up, and so it's hard. They have to work through that and process that and see that every step of the way got them to today.
Absolutely. And also, if you've had a lot of trauma in your life, if you've had a really difficult upbringing or background, be kind to yourself about that, because you became you, beautiful you, as a result of all of those experiences. It's nothing to be ashamed of. Let go of that shame story. We all have our stuff. Every single person does. And you came in to this world as a beautiful and perfect and whole and complete being. And that's who you are still. People feel so broken when they go through life's experiences. No, you're not broken. You are strong. You have overcome everything, and you're still standing. That's something to be proud of. That's something to pat yourself on the back for.
That's right. And gratitude, it goes a long ways. Yeah.
It created you, and you're phenomenal and whole. You're that same person that came into the world. Nothing's been diminished. You've actually enhanced who you are by going through the experiences, as difficult as they've been, right?
Yeah. Right. And that grief process for me. So when Adam passed, and of course, many of my friends and I just have a few, my siblings left, but all my other relatives, everyone's passed. So I already had all that grief. But of course, Adam's passing, that left
That's
crater.
next level.
Like I thought I was gone.
Your son, yeah.
But I have learned to rebuild it and put it and kind of glue it together. It's kind of like knocking over that, the cat knocking over that glassware you like, and you glue it back together, and you kind of like it's still there. It's still heart shaped. It's just different.
Yeah.
It's just having that knowing that there is so much more beyond this physical life that's going on all around us, and all of us can access and tap in, feel it, investigate, learn, explore, go inside and ask those deep, dark questions that you were afraid to ask. It's just everything mysterious is really, truly so amazing to kind of like dip into.
Once you start to access it,
and
ask questions, ask yourself questions, journal, just pay attention to what you feel or hear are answers to the questions. Ask questions, ask them out loud, ask them in your head. Nobody needs to know you're talking to yourself. Nobody needs to know. Get curious.
Right?
I really feel like we get answers.
Get curious and ask. All the time. It might be just a memory pops up, or you can walk in front of the TV and the answer comes across on a commercial. It's going to get to you.
We're being
you've got to be in
all the time. But and what one sign means to somebody might be have a different interpretation or present as a different sign to somebody else. So there's no like playbook. It's your own playbook. Certain numbers resonate with you, like Sara, you're 222. Certain things are symbolic, the symbolism of it, but it's all really geared for you to interpret. It's like you need to create your own guidebook of things that are meaningful and speak to you. So if you're starting to notice something, pay attention to that. If it keeps happening, okay, well, that goes into my little guidebook of, okay, that's a nudge or a wink or something, and I need to pay attention. What does that mean for me?
Right. And then add on to it. Because everyone wants, I get it all the time. People want validation, but it's you validating it. You've got to feel it in your body. Does that feel right? Because we're raised. You need validation from that teacher based on the score on your test and everything else. Yes.
All external. You need validation from everyone else, but what matters is how you feel about it. You validate it.
Does it make me feel good? Does it make me feel good? And when you doubt, that just means you're doubting everything. You're doubting everything. So you've got to really go in there and go, how does this make me feel? And then you kind of like tipping the scale. You get further up. You have to dig
deep, but it's kind of like a muscle. You practice it. And I also
you
found
have to practice it.
Practice it over and over. And also I found like a real simple tip that I got from one of my guests is, for me, it's vibration. So higher vibration, lower vibration. But he put it so perfectly and said, look at your life and ask yourself what you're choosing. Is this above the line and taking me higher, or is it below the line?
Perfect.
Check in, right? Is this food above the line? Is it below the line? Is this friend elevating me or sinking me? Is this a toxic friend? So you want to be letting go of things that are below the line. You're going to know. Even if you choose it a few more times, you're still going to know, maybe I need to rethink that. Maybe I don't want to call this toxic relative, even if it's my mother, because it's going to ruin me for 3 hours. I'm going to get wrecked, Okay, don't call. Text. You can do things that are in resonance.
Send a card.
Exactly.
Maybe at the grocery stores you can get cards, but yeah. Right.
But what I'm saying is to align and tune in with ourselves. We're always we're like a tuning fork. We're always kind of fine tuning our vibration and who we are in this life, right?
Constantly.
Try and be as much as you can above the line instead of below the line in your choices. Like, is watching CNN elevating me 24/7? Probably not. That's not above the line.
No, not unless you got stock in CNN.
I just turn it off. I'm like, if something's happening and going down, I'm going to know about it. It's going to show
how they pick apart everything.
My parents will tell me because they watch the news all the time.
That's that generation. And
right?
it's that generation.
And they
That's where that
really
shift is going to
honor
happen.
and really buy into everything that's said. I said, just because it's out there, mom and dad, doesn't mean it's
Doesn't mean
true.
no.
There's
Heck
fake news,
no.
you know, so be mindful.
That'll all come to the light, you know.
I think
So
so.
that'll all
I'm
come up.
wondering,
Yeah, that's part of it.
you have a sense
Yeah,
about
I
the
feel it.
timing? Like, do you have a sense?
Ooh, yeah. Well, I did. I made a couple posts about that, and it's going to vary with each parts of the. Now, where are your parents at?
They're in
California.
California.
So it depends. It's going to have different timelines in different areas, and depending where they are. So if your parents are still in that thought process, it's going to be a little bit longer for them, because they're going to have to really trust the external world to get back out there, right? Versus others, you know, the younger generation, they'll be fine. They're going to switch gears, you know, because they're so resilient. Younger people are just more resilient, as we know, right?
I think they're more open.
They kind of go with it.
They're more open.
They're more open. They're a higher energy anyway,
Yeah.
you know? So there's not the big shifts for them. Yeah, they've missed out and are grieving different things, but that's because that's where they are in their maturity level.
Right. I think a lot of every generation comes in a little bit higher, don't you? Like you had.
Oh my gosh, yes. I see it in
the stars, the crystal,
all the time.
Like every generation is like a next level of light being.
Yeah, they just come in with a deeper sense of knowing.
They're going to
you can't tell them. You
can't tell me.
Yeah, that's where the school systems, all that's going to change purposely. It's all going to change purposely.
For sure. They're going to teach us. They're teaching us.
They're teaching me now.
You know,
I don't know how to do half the technology or any of that stuff anyway. That's just natural for them, right? Because we've been programmed that robotic.
But I really feel with these new generations coming in, these, you know, school-based paradigms and programs that are based on a model from the 1800s, they're going to have to shift, right?
Yeah, that's come up in many of my sessions over the years was that the school systems are going to crack, but it's going to take this older generation to retire and pass away. And here we are, right?
Yeah.
Because they're the most, that's the group that's not going to want to change.
Right.
This is how it's worked. It's not broken.
You need the 30s,
that's where they're at.
Yeah, the younger teachers to come in with new ideas and new, you know, experience and new mindsets to kind of revolution.
Yeah.
And I hope that we see that in our geopolitical system too.
Oh yeah, you see lots of it imploding in different, just small areas all over. It's all over.
We're just talking about
how that's connected. Yeah, everything's connected. You're going to say, oh, this was all collective energy that was building. All these little volcanoes that are ready to erupt and create change.
Yeah, like a volcano or pressure, like a pimple coming to a head. It's got to
boil.
Whoa.
Right?
And heal after.
But it's got to heal. Like all of us. Like you're talking about like a boil or whatever. It's got to fully heal because that scab could just fester. That's gross. But it'll just fester, you know? And it's like, oh yeah, there's some more. There's some more layers that I thought I addressed.
I was so pissed off about that when I realized it. Like, you think you healed something, and then there is just
it comes
layers.
back to
it's
you
like,
go,
what?
Hey.
This shit's coming up again? I can't believe it. You know, this issue? What? You know, you think you've done all this work, and there it is. Nope, there's another layer to, you know, deal with.
It's almost like you have to get over that first hill on the roller coaster and really fully embody that and that you really learn from that. Yeah.
Then you get,
or if you want to call it the spiral up. Yeah.
Yes. And then you get to that mastery place and you're like,
and then you're just like, just go with it.
Thank God I don't need to do that one anymore. I can.
It's a present that we can give ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And no one else can give it to us. Yeah.
Right. Well, I just want to thank you so much for hanging out with me today.
Yeah, that was fun.
That was so much fun talking to you.
We could have talked for another hour.
Well, I could, but your battery's going to die.
I know my battery's
watching the time, I'm like, oh shit, we got 5 minutes.
I don't know what time it is.
Like, say goodbye right now so I can talk to her after.
Yeah. And hopefully in the next few weeks, you know, I heard about 3 weeks or so, we could meet at our favorite restaurant.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait.
Have lunch.
I sure miss socializing a lot. So anyway, to my audience, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah, for coming back on. You're one of my favorites.
Thank you.
And
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
my audience, you guys be kind to yourselves through this process, and just do your best, one day at a time.
Do your best. Drink your water.
Drink your water, hydrate, and rest. All right. I love y'all. We'll talk to y'all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.